Welcome to Inside Israeli Innovation. I'm your host, Steve Young, the Jerusalem Post economics correspondent. I'm joined today in the studio by Maayan Shahar, the managing director of UST Spark. We're here for a really special episode that's going to give us a deep dive of tips, tricks, and things to know for Israeli entrepreneurs and wannabe startup-east team. Maayan, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Happy to be here.
I'm excited. I'm excited.
Same.
Let's start by let's hear about you. What brought you to the field? We kind of touched. You have a really, really deep wealth of experience. Give our listeners that background. What's the experience? Where are you coming from?
So my background is business development. I've been doing that for over 15 years now in various verticals. That's what something that I really like about business development, that you can be very diverse. So I had a stop in fintech for a few years. I jumped and I became a CEO of a startup in the medical field. We aspire to objectively detect autism after birth. And while doing so, I traveled to Berlin to build our multinational multi-site clinical study.
Wow.
However, it was February 2020.
Oh no.
So, yeah. So I came back and I was the first group to go into quarantine. And clearly, the clinical study involved kids with autism. So I couldn't progress on that. I had my own business development firm and then I joined UST. First with my consultancy hat. That was like 4 years ago.
Wow.
And after a year or so, I joined full time. So my partner back then and myself, we built UST Spark here in Israel, which in very simple words, it's the open innovation and startup collaboration program of UST. And if I can take just 30 seconds, so just to explain what UST is. So UST is a global multinational company. It's a software company, very robust. We are situated in 30 countries. We're working with the Global 1000 and Fortune 500 of the world on large data projects. We are over 35,000 people worldwide. And here in Israel, UST has two main activities. One is our cyber company. Like many multinationals, acquired a cyber company here in Israel. And it was like 4 people back in the day. And
Wow.
now it's 650, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Business developed.
Yes. So about 60, 70 people are here in Israel and the others are worldwide. And then you still ask yourself, okay, what else can be done here in Israel? And there are many angles that a multinational can take, scouting, accelerators, different programs, even hackathons. And UST decided to take a very special angle of partnerships. So, very much an eye level kind of an approach, working with partners in the ecosystem and create joint go to markets towards different opportunities worldwide. So in my position, I feel that I have a lot of diversity in what I do. And sometimes throughout my career, it didn't felt like a linear line
Hmm.
because I was jumping a little bit and maybe at that time it didn't really make sense. But when I joined UST and I could bring all of my knowledge from different verticals into one thing that I do, suddenly it makes sense, right?
Yeah, I love that. The variety, but kind of bringing it all together.
Yeah, like connecting the dots.
Before we get kind of more, I think you touched on so many things that hopefully we'll get into a little bit more throughout the rest of this episode. What kind of brought you to the world of business development?
I really like the fact that it touches so many touch points within the organization. So you need to know quite a lot and you need to find those potential pockets of success in order to move forward, in order to win the next deal, in order to position the company in the best way. So I like the fact that it's very diverse.
Yeah,
Uh,
diversity is a big theme here.
yeah, it is.
Okay.
It is. So that's something that I've really liked. I've done sales a little bit. You can touch on marketing. You build strategy for new business as well as how to expand your business with existing clients. So the fact that you can do a lot is very much appealing for me.
Nice. I think a lot of people are looking for that place where they can do a bunch of different things, never get bored.
Yeah.
Let's start diving into those different things.
Yeah.
Let's talk about scaling. So, I think I mentioned this at the beginning of the episode. I just want to emphasize like you have this wealth of experience. What we really want to do is kind of get in and get great tips for aspiring entrepreneurs. So we're just kind of going to go through some topics you're an expert on and talk about them and why they matter.
Sure.
The first one we're going to start with is scaling.
Yeah.
Let's start with what is scaling? Then tell us why it's important and when entrepreneurs should be thinking about it.
That's a very good question. And I think that, you know what, let's start with the end. I think that entrepreneurs should really think of it and plan for it from day one.
Wow, day one.
Yes, because you want to build your company for success. And the Israeli market is a great market. I'll touch on the advantages in a minute. But it's a smaller market. So you can do a lot of things to prove your concept, or a word that I'm a bit allergic to, create a proof of value and
Mm,
show your technology. And you can have great access. However, you can't really scale here
mm,
because it's a small market. I can tell you that I travel to India. We have a lot of firepower in India, engineering wise and business. And I travel there, and it's a 1.4 billion people country. There are a lot of companies that only focus on India because the market makes sense. But in Israel, while being a small market, you need to think from day one: how do I scale beyond what I can do here?
and give us that what is scaling like for dummies version. That's copyrighted. So what is scaling
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
for
So
like
scaling
layman?
is the ability to multiply and do what you can do by yourself, but in a much larger scale, and it's in speed motion.
So like instead of just providing your product to like the 10 people who buy from you first, like how do you expand and
Yeah.
provide for more?
Yeah. So if you think about, let's say that it's like a tree, then you
Mhm.
have branches, so you can expand. If you're just going one by one and work in a line, it will take you time to achieve the same goals. So, how do you expand? How do you multiply yourself? How do you create a much larger impact while using partners, or, you know, building more of your capacity outside of your current domain, and so on?
And why is this important? I think you like touched on it in the answers to the other things, but give us like the
In the end of the day, you want to hit the market. You want to be fast on product market fit. If you're not going to be in the market, if you're not going to meet your clients, then your product market fit journey is going to be much longer. So if you build yourself for scaling, then your product market fit journey will be shortened, it will be better, and it will help you to create more sales. End of day, it will hit your bottom line, top line, whatever line you want to choose. That's where you want to go.
So you already said this word and brought us perfectly to our next section, which is about strategic partnerships,
Yeah.
another area of expertise for you. Again, let's just do the basics. What's a strategic partnership versus any partnership in a business? And again, why are they so critical?
So I think that any partnership is more kind of the nice to have. So you have a partner that can help you with some aspect of your business, let it be marketing, let it be sales, let it be branding, let it be any, but it can be also in legal. You can also have a partner that helps you with legal. However, when you have a strategic partner, it helps you to accelerate to a point that you couldn't have done it without them. So it can be a partner that can help you to create a proof of value within that market. It can be a partner that can help you to reach and open a new market, start your activity in a new market. It's a partner that is of magnitude to your business. It helps you really accelerate your process. And without them, without this partner, you'll be in a whole different story, a lot slower. So, a strategic one, it's not only in regards to just mere business and numbers, but also it needs to align with culture.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. And I can tell you that I had a lot of experience. A lot of experience in that space. So you need to make sure that you are aligned. If you're not aligned from a culture perspective, organizational culture, it's going to be a lot harder. And I doubt that you're really going to have a strategic partner.
Do you have any examples of like when that went wrong? Obviously, without names or like any things that you remember where you were like, oh, this culture does not align and that's why this didn't work.
So I can give you an example of a partnership that I was thinking of bringing together. And we had a first call, and the Israeli part, was a little bit too trigger happy.
Mm.
So a little bit too aggressive. And the other
Mm.
side was very British.
Mm.
Yeah. And they were, of course, they were lovely and very polite and I was trying to mitigate and kind of
Mhm.
slow the pace. But at the end of the day, we got off the call and it was the first call and, first impression. And my side was like, whoa, that was a little bit too much. So we had to take a step back and we waited for the right time to connect again. But also, I think that the main reason that we were even able to pick up the discussion again is because I tried to mitigate.
Yeah.
So I was able to take it back home and talk to the startup, then talk to my partners, wait a little bit, create that culture alignment, and then try to pick up the discussion again. But yeah, you need to be very sensitive to the culture of the other side and be very, very, very minded to it.
Any, like, kind of specific tips you have? Because we know that Israelis have a reputation of being very not always great at this, at kind of Israelis have a very unique culture. We're known for very specific things that don't always align, especially with, say, British or American business practices. So do you have any kind of concrete things that aspiring Israeli entrepreneurs should think about when approaching these relationships?
I want to start with a positive. Israelis are very, very good in sales,
Nice.
opening doors,
That makes
getting
sense.
to the right person, initiating that first dialogue. That's a huge plus. That's amazing. They need to be more minded in regards to the messaging.
Mm,
It needs to be very, very clear what the messaging is.
okay.
You can't really start, and I had those experiences when you just feel that you are a part of their thought process while you're in a meeting.
Okay.
Okay, so we need to be very, very prepared.
Is that like a lack of formality maybe, or we're talking about like preparedness in terms of like what you come
Preparedness.
in with? Got it.
Preparedness. Yeah, yeah. I think that the lack of formality to an extent is quite charming, can be
Nice.
quite charming. Uh, Again, to a point.
Yeah.
However, you need to be very prepared in terms of what you're doing, how you're doing it, why are you different, and why should they give you the time?
I have I think whenever this topic comes up, I think of like a really funny interaction that a friend of mine who works at a big multinational company like kind of regularly has, where she'll be on a call with like the Israeli team and another team, and the other team will be like trying in kind of their language to say no, and the Israeli team like doesn't understand that it's a no. They'll be like, um we're not sure that we want to entertain this at this time. And there's an Israeli team will be like, but this time is the perfect time, like not understanding that that's how you say no
Yeah,
in American
yeah,
business.
yeah.
So I love like little examples and stories like that. I'm sure you've encountered a million.
Yeah, I think that also the fact that sometimes the fact that the discussion is kind of a circular discussion,
Mm.
that you're not really kind of hitting the point, it's another way of saying, it's not for us for now.
Oh, that's interesting. I like
Yeah.
that perspective.
Yeah, I think that's also another thing to kind of pay attention to. If you're not really getting an answer,
Mm.
that's the answer.
Oh, I think that's great advice for life in general, right?
Yeah.
Not getting an answer is an
That's the answer.
answer. I
Yeah,
love
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Um, something that you said something that's come up already a few times is proof of value,
Yeah.
POV.
Yeah.
You said you're allergic to this term.
No, I'm allergic to proof of concept.
Oh, sorry, proof of
Yes. I think
concept.
that proof of value is a little bit different.
Mhm.
And proof of concept in my world, multinationals, sometimes it may only stay in kind of like the innovation lab level.
Okay.
And for the startup, it sounds great,
Mm.
right? I'm doing a proof of concept with blank, insert multinational name, okay, big brand, and it sounds great. However, if it's not necessarily a part of a more strategic play, it can
Mm.
only stay at the innovation lab or at the department level, kind of, yeah, a small project. And it
Interesting.
won't necessarily roll out to a larger deal, which what you want to get, right? So for me, we're doing tips, right?
Yeah.
A tip would be first to understand if this is only kind of We want to examine the technology. At what point is that organization? Are they, trying, thinking? Is it a part of maybe innovation play? Is it
Mm,
a need? Are they going to go for an RFP later? Really trying to assess the maturity level of the process. That's one.
interesting.
Second, understand who is the decision maker.
That's big.
That one really helps you understand how are you positioned. And third, money.
Money's always important.
Super important. If sometimes proof of concept, kind of like small scale, um, it can stay, without money exchanging hands. And when money does exchange hands, it means that that person needs to be accountable for
Yeah.
the results.
Mm,
Therefore, and also a CFO or the finance department will need to understand where does that money go. Okay? And that means serious business. Even when it's a small amount, yet it means that an internal process took place and someone actually signed off on this
mm.
venture. So that's very, very important. And maybe last tip is think how you can actually convert when you hit those KPIs. So when you start the proof of value, because you want to show value, it shows the impact, not only the technology, it shows the financial impact also. So you need to define what are those KPIs, what success looks like. So it needs to show that when you hit those KPIs, it will immediately convert to a much larger scale project and not just stays a nice to have kind of we're trying new technology thing.
We touched on this a little bit. Let's go back into it. Relationship management. How are Israelis at this? It seems like it must be pretty critical given Israel's dependence on foreign markets, especially. Give us the overview. How are we doing and what do we need to be doing better?
So I think that generally speaking, we're quite good at that. Okay. However, there are some things that we can do to help us even more. So first, be very conscious on regards to the culture of the person on
Mm,
the other side. Many companies actually at a quite early stage have a local presence. I
mm,
cannot stretch enough the importance of local presence. Just as an example, just a few days ago, I had a conversation between one of our partners. It's an Israeli company, but they have local presence in the US, or one of the sales managers, with one of our sellers. And they started talking about the place. Apparently, they grew up in the same place.
oh, wow.
Yeah, so they started talking about, and it's like the same for us, right? If I'd say, yeah, so I grew up in Jerusalem and I here and there. Personally speaking, I grew up north, but it kind of connects people and bring them together. So, and also culture wise and understanding culture cues and so on. So having that local presence really does help for various reasons. And I can say that I can see a shift also that a lot of CEOs and C-level execs from Israel are traveling more. I see that, especially in the last year or so.
Wow.
Traveling more. Yeah, sometimes, I've some CEOs are in 3 time zones at the same time,
Oh my
right?
goodness.
Really hard to reach, but they really want to be face to face,
Mm,
with people. Yeah, a lot can be done virtually, which is of course amazing. But there is nothing like face to face. So from a partnership management perspective, it's always important to understand what value do you bring to your partner. So just being in the mindset of, I have an amazing technology. If they sell us, that will be a huge game changer for them. That's not the right mindset.
like more specific value we're talking about?
Specific value that is not only you sell me.
Okay.
Okay. How can I help with driving more business your way? Or how can we drive business together? What value do I, as a startup, bring to the table beyond technology? It can be a relationship, it can be connects, it can be marketing, it can be positioning, it can be many other things. Or I need your help selling to this market.
Mm,
Okay, I already have some interest in this specific market. Can you help me there because I have leads? So, as mentioned, Israelis are very good in creating those opportunities.
Mm.
Sometimes those opportunities can be a good starting point.
Do you think that these almost kind of always exist? Like, is this the kind of thing where startups just need to be thinking about this and entrepreneurs need to be conscious of it and they'll find it? Or should you be focusing who you're trying to build relationships with based on what you can offer to really like to these partners? Like, how do you do this when you really want to work with someone and you just can't think of like, what can I offer beyond sell me?
So I think both. It really depends. If you're only looking for someone that would sell your technology, there are very specific profile kind of companies that you need to
Mm,
approach and then approach them. That's what they're looking for. They are looking to expand their portfolio of solutions that they sell to the market. Their main plans to be a reseller. And that's the right dialogue
that's
for
the
them.
value you're offering them.
Exactly, because that's what they're looking for.
Nice.
But if that partner is not that kind of a partner and that is not that kind of a play, it might be a play but not the play, then you really need to understand what play are they looking for. And you can just ask, what does success look like for you? What are you being measured on? What are the KPIs that you need to hit?
Yeah, is that a conversation that you can have? I think there's like this
With a
sense of like fear of like, I need to appear to be perfectly prepared and know everything about this company I'm working with. Do you think that
with
that's
a
like something that can come up?
well, again, it depends on kind of the maturity of the discussion.
Mm,
But yeah, at some point, this is what I was thinking. But I'll be happy to understand because maybe there are things that I'm not thinking about at the moment
I
that we
love that.
can.
I love that phrasing that you like instead of like, hey, what can I give you? You're like, oh, here. Like, I think that was a perfect rephrasing. It reminds me of like any job interview or any pitch when you're like, how can I say X, but say it so it sounds really good? So
I
great phrasing. Write this down, listeners.
I have a confession to make. Never in my life did I
Mhm.
get a job through an interview.
Really?
Never.
Why didn't you say this in the first
Never
question?
in my I very lucky in that way, but it was always through my network. So
Wow.
actually, I'm very lucky in
Have you
that
been to
way.
job interviews?
At a very early
Okay,
age,
cool.
I didn't like that.
I think they're a lot of fun. Like
You
personally,
do.
I find them to be kind of like engaging. I like talking
Mhm.
about myself, but we're on a tangent here. Let's get back to business.
I feel it brings the worst out of me.
Oh no.
It does. Yeah, it's
Which is interesting because your phrasing of how to kind of approach that difficult conversation was so great just now. Like it seems like
yeah.
it's really natural to you and that's a really big skill for like
Yeah, I feel that I can be like I think that I can be quite okay in that, but I just don't like it.
that makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I was lucky to just,
Not have to do it.
yeah,
Amazing.
yeah,
That's so interesting. Very cool.
yes. I think that for now, like being over 40 now, I can say that it was kind of like the whole thing throughout my career. But let's go back to our
Yeah,
to
let's
our
go back to.
topic.
So let's kind of zoom out a little bit. General tips working with corporations.
Oh,
What
yeah.
should entrepreneurs know?
Yes. Okay, so corporates are an interesting animal.
You're making a face when you say this, and I'm interested.
So I think that, a startup should understand that there are a lot of processes that they're not aware of that are
Okay.
happening behind the scene when they're working with a corporate. Let it be a partner that is a corporate or a client that is a corporate. There are a lot of processes. There are many stakeholders that are involved. There are a lot of approvals that needs to take place, and there are things that like timing and time is very important.
Mm,
In some cases, you can be right, like the timing is perfect and things are really accelerated. In other times, it can take a lot longer. And I can give you an example. For instance, in Australia, we had a conversation with one of our partners and a client in Australia. And they were like, yeah, we know what we want. We're not even going to do an RFP process. It's going to be really straightforward. 3, 4 months, short process, hitting the ground running. We're going to pick a technology, done. Reality, they did issue an RFP. It took longer than a year.
wow.
Many people actually changed throughout the process, like went on leave or came back or just changed positions. So some things had to kind of be done again, redo,
Mm,
and so on. So it was a very cumbersome process at the end. Um, sometimes also from the outside, it looks that corporate might be very organized.
Mm.
And you find out that maybe not to the extent that you thought.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah. So, and also if you have one champion that you're working with, that person can change positions or
Mm.
leave. And sometimes, if you're only counting on one person,
Yeah.
then you're putting all your eggs in one basket. And that can be challenging if that person, leave, or you need to redo it if a new person comes in,
Yeah,
and then
absolutely.
strategy needs to change, or they're kind of thinking their priorities and so on. So I think that the more you learn about the internal processes in a gentle, very respectful way, it can really help you to understand how you are positioned, how much time it will take, how much resources will it
Mm.
take from your end in order to build your capacity in the right way.
Um, is this kind of something that you can do generally to learn about work with corporations, or we're talking about you need to identify the partners you'd want to work with and then learn about them specifically? Is it kind of super different in every place?
I think that, yeah, I think that some corporates or some projects, again, regarding the timing, you can really kind of be on the right timing and everything is a lot smoother. It won't be easy, but it will be smoother. And in other times, it might be a lot more cumbersome and challenging. But you just need to learn how to work with corporates and make sure, if possible, to have more than one champion.
Always, that's always great.
Yeah.
Another great life tip in general.
Yeah. So, if kind of you're balancing your risk, and also be minded that working with you as a startup is very risky for corporates,
Yeah.
right? And also, it comes down all to the build versus buy dilemma.
Mm.
Be very minded about that. Why should they work with you? You are an external product. Why should they work with you? Can they do that themselves?
Mm.
And if they can, how much time will it take them to do that? And why are you the right answer to their challenges? And why are you the right answer and not other products in the market? So there are a lot of things that you really need to come prepared when working with a corporate, because, end of day, also corporates sometimes just kind of check the market.
Yeah.
Okay, they want to understand what is out there. Not necessarily they're going to enroll a project right now. They might be doing that in the future, but not necessarily right now. So you need to kind of understand where they're at in terms of their mindset. Budget is a
Mm.
big thing. When are budgets being approved, right? Maybe it's only like 9 months from now,
Yeah.
and that will prolong the process. So I think that being minded towards and kind of answering the questions before they're being asked,
Mm.
that's a very important topic. And also, if they're not being asked, you can always share that information later on and say, we haven't covered this in this conversation. I'm going to share some materials with you. Maybe those questions will come out in follow up sessions internally. So just so you'll have that information with you. But you, as a startup, need to be minded and be prepared and create those materials or create those answers, and also kind of in an elegant way, maybe insert them to
Mm.
create reassurance. Again, mitigating that risk, because that's the mindset. Eventually, if not from a technology perspective, from an IT perspective, from a compliance perspective, why should they work with you? And how do you help them mitigate that? And you know what? Going back to your question, partners, strategic partners, can help you mitigate that gap.
Mm.
Because maybe you don't have a local presence, and it's really important for them to have a local presence. Another example, just uh, 2 weeks ago, one of our partners had an opportunity in France. They don't have local presence in France. And it was very important to the client to have a local team. Again, culture,
Yeah.
alignment, language. It was very
Mm.
important. They said, we cannot move forward with you guys.
Wow.
We love the technology, but we need to have a local presence. So a local partner can mitigate that risk.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I love how we're kind of talking about all these business strategies, but at the end of the day, I think if you boil them down, they're very like soft skills almost, right? Like I think what you just described is kind of like a lot of empathy.
Soft skills are the hardest.
And I feel like soft skills are the hardest, and also we pretend that they're not, like, at the heart of so much business, but, like, I think what you're describing is really indicating that they kind of are.
Yeah. In the end of the day, people need to know that they can trust the other side. And when you're minded to their kind of fears or concerns or, you know, thought process, then it shows that you are reliable and that you have empathy as well, and that you are minded to the process and you want to help them succeed as well as yourself, of course, which is fine.
I love it. Like, I studied economics, right? So it's all about, like, the bare bones, the cold, harsh graphs, like, people's feelings, values, like, they don't come into it at all, and I love that the actual conversation about how do you actually do business development is so focused on, like, all these things that are much more human driven.
Don't get me wrong, you need to have the graphs.
Graphs are great. I love
Yes,
a good graph.
you need to have the graphs. You need to show why or why are you good in what you're doing. You need to show that you are ROI driven. You need to show that you can actually achieve the goals. You need to show that. But how and when? I think it's very important. Like the message, it
Yeah.
needs to be right on point. Otherwise, it creates a much longer process, and the other side may get kind of
Mm.
exhausted to a point.
Okay, so something we haven't really touched on, but I think is like absolutely critical kind of in everything in our lives in Israel these days is the ongoing Israel Hamas war, the post October 7th horrible Hamas attack on the south of Israel. It's also, we know, had a big impact on startups and entrepreneurs in Israel. We know it's impacted everything from funding to we were talking about like a presence and a relationship, and flights have been wildly impacted
Yeah.
by the war. Um, Kind of, do you have any specific tips, advice, thoughts about how startups and entrepreneurs should be thinking about their business and what they're trying to do in the context of dealing with all this adversity?
Yeah. So I think that's really quick. The ecosystem kind of, build a plan and execute it. And I think that we had like a campaign of no matter what. And I think that it really resonated with a lot of people.
Wow.
And I can share from experience that I see a lot more CEOs travel. They are a lot more abroad, meeting their partners and clients face to face. And I think that's one way of, mitigating the current
It's
situation.
like kind of reassuring
Yeah.
to
Not
kind of,
not only reassuring, but actually, be there and
yeah.
and accelerating the processes. In addition, working with partners, more building your own network in a much stronger way,
Hmm.
and also having local presence. I think that's the way that, the ecosystem kind of adjusted
Mm.
themselves. From a delivery standpoint, I have to say that I saw amazing projects being done and projects that were accelerated, and reassurance to partners and clients that, projects can be delivered. So that was quite impressive.
Any final tips? We're going to wrap up, but any final tips, messages, things that entrepreneurs, startupistim, whoever is
Yes.
in the country needs to know?
Enable your partners.
Mm.
Enable them. Don't think that, if you just say or show that you have a great technology, that you're, immediately onboarded and it's now, super easy. Enable them. Provide them with the knowledge.
Mm.
You have some startups that are, they have like an academy and you can enroll people to get certified, and they have battle cards, which is a great tool. If you have a battle card, then, you're enabling them to understand what is your value proposition really in a concise way. What are the probing questions that are you should ask your clients, kind of understanding the need. What is like the 30-second pitch? It really needs to be clear on why you, why now, and how you're enabling them, not only the client, but your partner. Enable
Mm.
them, have the right materials, help them to be more successful, and always be minded on their processes and how can you help them achieve their KPIs. So it's kind of like a three-way kind of a game of you, your partner, and the client. And how do you create a win-win for everybody? And come with open arms and understand that not necessarily you're going to do the entire project. You may be just a part of it. So really understand where you're positioned in the value chain of the project. Because when you understand where you begin and when you end, you understand also kind of the scope of the entire project and how can your partner leverage what you're doing for the entire project. Help them help you, kind of cliche. Yeah.
Cliches are cliches because,
For a reason.
yeah, yeah. All right, Maayan Shahar, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.